Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit about wages and pricing and rates for outdoor leaders, so bushcraft, forest school, general outdoor instructors. I've been a self-employed outdoor leader for the best part of 4 years now. And in that time I've had to handle my own accounts and sort out my own rates and everything else, and it was very confusing, but over the years I've developed a system for how I price the sessions I run and how I decide what is actually working for me and what isn't. And this is something that I see a lot of in Facebook groups and online, is people querying how they should price the sessions they're running. Like, how much do I charge for X session? So and so has asked me to do a birthday party for this number of children. How do I decide how much money to charge these people? And as I said, I've set up a system. This is how I do things. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about how I price rates and systems and how you can do the same, keep watching. See you in a mo. So here we are in my Excel spreadsheet that I've built specifically for this video. It's very similar to the one that I use on a day-to-day basis. I've just simplified some things and I've removed others which are very specific to my own circumstances. Before we get into the breaking this down, there's 3 things I want to mention. Number 1, I want to thank Andy from Small Business Toolbox, who first developed a spreadsheet like this, and it's his that I have very loosely adapted. So this is homage to him. This is specifically designed for outdoor instructors and leaders. His was more piece rate, more self-employed tradesmen and so on, but I'll leave a link to his video up here somewhere. Everything else I thoroughly recommend checking out. He does go into depth on how to price yourself as a self-employed business owner, and it's a great video. Thoroughly recommend it. Thank you for that. Second thing is, I am not an accountant. This is not legal or accountancy advice. If you're unsure about any of this, any of the calculations, do your own research, get advice from an accountant, so on. This is all my own opinion, the way I do things. As far as I know, it is all correct and above board, but I said, do your own research. Third thing to mention is that if you would like to have the spreadsheet, I will have a link in the description and the cards to where you can download this full spreadsheet. So you can go ahead, use it yourself, have a play around with the numbers and get it tailored to your particular situation and what you're doing. Okay, with all that said, let's get straight into it. So we're on our first sheet. If I pop over to here, income. So this is where you start thinking about how many sessions you're going to be running a week and start working on a day rate or half day rate. So to be able to go, okay, this is the amount I need to make from a session or activity or event going forward to achieve the income goals, to meet whatever mortgages, rent, bills, because all of us have bills to pay, and those bills at the moment are getting increasingly higher. So getting this right will make a massive difference. So starting at the top here, we go calculate the number of days we can actually work in a year, because as a leader, you're often not out delivering sessions for the majority of your time. There's a lot of admin to do, there's holiday days, there's sick days, the weather can all factor into that. So if we can calculate roughly how many days we're actually going to be delivering sessions, we can then use that to price our rates. So I currently have this set to 4 sessions a week. Now that is pretty full on for me and the type of sessions that I put together. You may well want to go with just 3, or if you have a really good setup, if you're in a school, if all of the equipment is there, you don't need to do any extra admin, you don't need to do any sort out any accounts or payments or whatever, you can get away with running 5 sessions a week. But for me, as I said, that would be pretty full on. I tend to need at least 1 day of admin to handle the accounts, to handle the emails, to put out content like this, it's do the marketing, all of that. So my maximum would actually be closer to 3 sessions per week. But as I said, tailor this to yourself, decide how many sessions you're going to run a week and how much outside of session planning and prep do you need to be able to do, whether sharpening tools, drying out tarpaulins. There's a whole lot else that goes into that. And that will give us, that number will give us a maximum sessions per year. So that's total number of sessions you could actually run here, which you're probably not going to, because you're going to want a holiday. You're going to want some time off, otherwise you will burn out. You need to take time for yourself, time for your family, and time just to sit back and work out what you want to do going forward, to reorient yourself, decide whether things are working or not. You need that time off. So here I've just gone for a pretty standard 28 days. Tailor this to yourself. 6 days, if you're a pretty healthy person, average number of sick days a year is 6 days, but we all are out in all weathers, and a lot of us who work with children, you can probably see that increasing a fair bit. But get an average, get an idea, just throw it together. The other factor that most other professions don't have to deal with is weather. There are times where you just won't be able to run a session. Whether it's high winds, thunderstorms, severe flooding, heavy snow, there are reasons why you would have to cancel a session. And you should expect a few of those to come up, because barring certain circumstances, you probably won't get paid for that time. So it's worth subtracting from the total. Even if you're in a school and whatever, and you're just doing indoor sessions, there's school holidays, lots of work. So that gives us a total number of sessions that we can expect to run in a year. So about 168 sessions, 4 sessions per week, get 2.5 weeks holiday, or 3.5 weeks holiday, sorry. There you go. So then we can work our way down to our day rates, and we can start having a look at, we set our day rates. So if we set at about £100 a day, so if we charge £100 a day, we will make gross revenue somewhere in the region of 16,800 a year. Now that seems like an awful lot, but it's worth remembering at this point we haven't even started on the subject of overheads, expenses, and taxes, so on. So that number is going to get a good deal lower very fast, because as you know, as a self-employed business owner, you will be handling a lot of your own costs. So you'll be providing holiday pay, sick pay, national insurance, and tax, all for yourself as well. Now here, this is going to change a bit depending on what sort of business model you have. So here I've called it realistic gross revenue. So as I said, even if you're working in a school and you have a contract with them, there are still school holidays, there are still times when the whole class is away for a school trip, whatever, you probably won't be delivering every session that you probably could. If you're working privately, this 80% roughly covers the times where you don't get people rebooking for your events, or you have a very small session one week and a bigger session the next. When you're dealing with lots of different customers that aren't reoccurring flat fee for a year, it will fluctuate up and down, and it will likely fluctuate down. So we can see that even though maximum we could probably earn at £100 a day for 208 sessions is that 16,800, but it's more likely to be close to the 14,000. So as we look into that, we can start getting an idea of how that plays out if we go through this. So taking it over to this little box, this sits on its own. This gives you an idea of how you're going to price an individual session if you're charging per head. So this one is again one you can fill out yourself and work out, do a bit of Excel foo, so change the number of participants, change the number of prices, see where that plays out. So for private forest school sessions, so say for home ed families, at 20 participants, £12 per head, the maximum we would get from that in total income is £240. Now, if we again apply that 80% rule, it'll take it down to about 192. And as we go over into expenses, I've got it in this part, I've automatically taken off the expenses that we'll get into on the next sheet to show that we'll roughly have profit of 159 for a full day session if we charge £12 per head with the expenses. You can see with the workshop, afternoon workshop, we can reduce the number of participants, but because they're adults and we are teaching at a higher level, we can expect to charge a bit more, and expect to put a bit more planning in. As you can see, the revenue and realistic revenue increase there as well, and so does the profit. Class for outdoor learning, if you say taking a school class out, you might just have one participant, which is the school, and you just take our 30 children, you charge a £250 as a flat rate for that, and you can see that even though you are taking in quite a large amount with expenses, it does come down pretty quickly. And then once you've filled in all of your different sessions and activities, you can get an idea of what your weekly total profit is going to be and what your average profit over 4 weeks is likely to be. So in this case, about 2,500. So that's income. So you should have a play around with this, see what works. So if that was the end of it, then that would be really simple, but now we get into the part that trip people up. A lot of people look at the big headline number, okay, I can charge £5 per person, and that means if I have 10 children, that means that £50 per half day, that means £100 a day. I could do pretty well on £100 a day. This is when you hit the overheads. There are certain costs out there that are just a part of life for a self-employed outdoor instructor. The first of these expenses is the annual overheads. These are the things you pretty much need to trade, to deliver sessions. Top of those is insurance. You're going to need insurance unless you are working for a school and they provide their own insurance, or a different organization, in which case that number may well change, but it is still worth having your own insurance to be able to run sessions alongside that. So even if you're school based, you might want to run a birthday party here, or run a little bushcraft or wreath making workshop there. Insurance is pretty high up there on the necessities. So I personally pay about I think $500 a year, but that covers me for everything outdoor learning, everything bushcraft. If forest school, $300 is probably depending on whether you have employer's liability in there or not. So whether you have volunteers or assistants that you'll need insurance for, that will change the amount. But yeah, for me, with employer's liability and everything else, about $400, $500. Accounting. So this can be a zero cost if you do it all yourself, just paper-based or on a spreadsheet, but it's difficult to stay on top of it. Having an accountant is a really nice luxury. They take care of most of it. You still need to keep good accounts. If you have a lot of expenses to write off, if you're doing writing off a lot of your home office bills and so on, it's probably worth getting an accountant. I personally use accounting software. I use Xero, and I've got on pretty well with it. It lets me encourages me to stay on top of things. So every week I go through and I just reconcile. I add all the paperwork for every accounting line, and it all comes out, all sets up automatically. So when I was doing my accounts last week for the year, I just had to click generate profit and loss report, and it was all there. All of the documents appended, everything I needed. So taxes are a breeze if you break it down into small chunks over the course of the year. And that cost me about £16 a month or so. And then we get into marketing. Now, you could go with a very low marketing budget, but if you're running significant numbers of private sessions, you're probably going to need to spend some money on that, whether it's a booking platform like Bookwin, paying for a business account, running Facebook ads, printing flyers and leaflets. You can expect to spend a decent amount of money to get revenue in. Even if it's not physical money, it may well be time. But it's best to account that. The camera that I'm filming on here, that came out of my marketing budget because I produce these videos, and this is a form of marketing. Hopefully encouraging you to join me on a course in the future. And there we go, and then we have the booking platform as well. Now the way these spreadsheets set up, so you can change the values in the white boxes, and then the grey boxes are automatically changing on there, because you tend to pay annually for a lot of these costs. I'll give you a per session amount and per month amount. Okay, going onwards. Have a quick drink. Next big thing is equipment. Now you can go pretty bare bones with a lot of this equipment, and if you're lucky enough to have a school pay for all of this, it will keep costs down significantly. But I am a big believer in providing good quality equipment for the sessions I run. I don't want children to be struggling with the £5 Wilco pruning saws that I found, if I can get them a nice quality Laplander that will be sturdier, that will cut better, that will make their lives easier. In the end, as a good mentor, and I consider a friend, said that what we want to do is help the people we work with achieve success. And having good quality equipment, I think, is a part of that. And it makes our lives easier as well, because good quality equipment doesn't need to be replaced as often, and it can be a long-term investment. Even if you are not buying new equipment every month or every year, you will likely need to spend some money on maintaining it, whether it's buying and using sharpening stones, whether it's replacing the bow saw that snapped, the saw blade snapped, whether it's buying a new waffle iron. There are plenty of other costs associated, so it's good to have something in the budget for tools and equipment. You may also need to spend some time and money on storage, because if, like me, you gather a whole lot of equipment for a whole lot of things, you may need to have a shed or outbuilding or boxes, and these things, they aren't always cheap, and not all of them will last very long with the type of lifestyle and the type of work we usually do, because they're often in and out of vans, children standing on them, dropped off carts. It tends to be pretty rough on storage materials, and things like having good quality industrial shelving at home to store all of the cast iron pots, it does add up very quickly. So having a bit, you're going to need some equipment storage. Now this is the big one when we get over to vehicle. So it's a cost that not a lot of leaders think as much about as I think maybe they should. Because when you have quite a bit of equipment that you're carrying around, you will normally require a car that is slightly bigger or a van that's slightly bigger than you would normally have. If I didn't run the sessions that I ran or go on the trips that I did, I wouldn't be driving around in a van. I'd be driving around in a relatively economical 5-seater car, and I'd be quite happy with that. The problem is that doesn't have near enough space for the people and equipment I want to move. So having a van is a business expense, and the running costs are going to be higher. Insurance and the tax and the servicing and the purchase cost are going to be higher. So you need to work this into your business plan, because it's above and beyond what you would normally pay to get to work at, say, an office job. So work that in there, and you'll have a better idea of exactly what you're spending money on and exactly your outgoings. As you can see, it adds up pretty quickly once we throw in vehicle per year. So this I just went on a standard motoring sales site, had a look at used £18,000 3-seater vans over 4 years old, and had a look at the basic running cost, purchase cost, and how much it would cost on finance. It works out to somewhere around £5,000 a year. Then when we get into home office, this is one that's worth thinking about. If you're at home, if you're working from home and doing lots of admin, you will be using up more light, heat, internet. There are online calculators to use there, so have a go, see how many rooms you're using in the house, how much it costs to heat it, and so on. And you can start to put a number to that. If you need an extra large contract for a mobile phone, say you're sending a lot of texts or uploading a lot of photos in the field or taking videos or shooting live streams, something like that, you may need to have a bit more of a budget for your phone. And you will likely also need a budget for stationery and printing. I try and reduce the amount of paper I use. I try not to do arts and crafts in the woods as much. I try not to just give people fact sheets and check sheets and whatnot. But even then, you're still going to spend, whether it's on pencils to mark wood planks for woodworking, whether it's Sharpies for writing on equipment. You will spend a bit on that, but all of these costs are relatively low. So once we've hit through our overheads, we've hit our equipment, we've hit our office costs, we need to have a look at our professional development, because at the end of the day, I would like to think that we're all lifelong learners, and with Bushcraft and Forest School there is always more to learn and there is always more to improve on. So having a decent budget for professional development, I would say, is a necessity. It may well be things that are pretty necessary, like first aid and food hygiene and so on, but it may also be events such as Excellence in Woodland, where you get we attend with different bushcraft instructors, whether it's you getting your IOL Bushcraft Competency Certificate. I say £600 is a pretty good budget for the year. I'd probably spend more than that if I'm perfectly honest, but courses really allow you to go further faster. But tailor this to yourself. Moving on, PPE and clothing. It's a demanding life out in the woods. You will typically go through clothing and boots and waterproofs faster than you would if you were in an office job. Brambles don't care what you wear. They will take it apart, hopping over barbed wire fences when you need to. There's always a risk of a torn waterproof trouser. So you should have an amount set aside for sturdy waterproof boots, for gloves, for waterproofs, things that keep you going when you're out in the field and enable you to stay warm and dry and look after the people in your session. You may also want to have a look at memberships of, say, the Institute of Outdoor Learning, the Forest School Association. There are plenty of professional bodies out there that are very helpful, either with regular magazines, discounts on training programs, or fantastic conferences. These are, again, part of your continued professional development and a way of setting yourself up above the rest. So what we then have is the non-variable overheads total. So these are all of the above expenses are ones that are unlikely to change over the course of the year. They won't fluctuate from month to month. They'll just be a lump sum at some point in the year. Or there'll be a consistent cost every month, the same amount. So these are the numbers you're looking for really when you are working out what your overheads are. So see, based on the numbers I've entered here, be spending about £650 per month on overheads. So that means I have to earn at least £650 to be in the green and not disappearing underwater. Then we head down to session running costs. These are the ones that fluctuate depending on the number of sessions you do and the specific costings. Venue hire is probably going to be the biggest one of them, unless you're very lucky and you own your own woodland or have a permission on a site to use for peppercorn rent. This will likely be a significant cost. So fill this out according to your own circumstances, but yes, it's going to be a big cost. Consumables, so this comes down to things like biscuits and hot drinks if you're offering them in a session. Some places won't let you gather your own firewood, so you'll have to bring in firewood. Craft supplies like string or pipe cleaners, whatever you're using for your sessions that you're not going to have after the session, this all sits in there. Wire for wreaths, all sorts of consumables. You will need a budget per session. Extra staff, this will again be determined by your circumstances. I tend to run most of my sessions on my own, so I don't have this cost because I can usually manage the ratios well enough and either have parents stay with or get a parent volunteer along the session. So this is a place you can make savings, or if you have a bigger group, this may be a necessity. You may need to spend a bit on extra staff. And the last thing to consider is getting to and from the session is fuel. I have a session on the other side of Birmingham and it eats into my mileage for the month quite heavily. So this may not be an expensible claim, but it is something worth keeping an eye on. So then we have it. Based on our numbers that we've put in here, we would have total expense of £1,182 a month, or £74 per day. You can see your margins disappear very quickly if you're not aware of these expenses. Then down here we just have a little box that's based on our previous sheet, on the number of sessions we're running and per month and so on. That will then figure into the columns that divide it per session. And then a handy little box at the bottom here, I've created a mileage calculator that I use to work out how much it's going to cost me to do a certain trip, either because I need to work that into my figures, charge the customer or client more for that, or just be aware of how much I need to budget for that month. So in that you can add the number of miles on the trip. So if it was 200 miles, fuel price hovering about 166 at the moment. That's pretty accurate. And my van gets about 45 miles per gallon on, which is automatically converted to 9.89 miles per litre. On a side, why do we still measure in miles per gallon when the petrol is priced in litres? Just doesn't make any sense. Okay, moving on. So this gives us a price per mile of 17 pence, and for 200 mile trip cost me roughly £33.57 in fuel alone. But as we all know, cars and vans being the black holes they are, you can't just calculate in fuel. You will also likely have to calculate in servicing and maintenance costs. So currently set it to roughly 50% extra over the fuel cost to give me a total for wear and tear and petrol. So for 200 mile trip, in total wear and tear and everything else, I would say you'd be looking to put away about £50. Okay, so now that we have the income and expenses sorted out. So we have a number per month and per year of expenses and overheads. We've got our base income. We can then head over to the balance sheet, which brings it all together. As you can see here, current annual expected revenue is 13,440. Allowable expenses, so these are the expenses that you can actually write off from your taxes, would leave us with a gross profit of £4,904 for the year. I don't know about you, but that would be pretty tricky to live on. Then we head down here. So currently, as far as I know, the personal tax-free allowance is 12,570, which means we're way under that. So that means the taxable revenue is pretty much zero. So it's only when we get only when we take profit over our £12,570 allowance that we start paying tax. Now, even though you're not required to pay any tax under that threshold, you may want to pay Class 2 National Insurance voluntary. I won't get into that very much because, to be honest, I'm not, as I said, an accountant or expert on that. I'll just say that this is what preserves your rights and benefits as it comes to retirement and so on, and access to services. So you may want to pay it, which point it would be £3.45 per week. So 179 total tax. So this takes us down here to a net annual profit of 4,724 or £393 per month. Now, a lot of outdoor leaders will work on a per hourly rate. Now, we've already talked earlier on in the video about that all of our time not being in delivery. So we may only deliver 3 to 4 sessions a week, and we may only be delivering on those days for 4 hours, 2-hour sessions. But when you add in your travel time, your setup, your planning, your takedown time, whatever lunch breaks and whatever you get, that your hourly rate drops drastically. So if you're only earning, if you say, okay, well, hourly rate would be £3.11 or £9, whatever, over the course of a whole day delivering sessions, you may only deliver 6 sessions, which 6 times 9, £54, which gets eaten to really quickly, because that wouldn't even make our per session expenses cost. If we go back here, you can see per session £74. So if we're charging £10 an hour, let's make it simple, and we're only doing 6 hours of delivery a day, we're losing £14 per day. So that's one to watch out for. I personally price everything on that day rate or half day rate. I will charge a day rate if it is virtually impossible for me to do another session on the same day. So even if I'm only delivering half a day, if I have to take the entire day off in terms of travel, planning, everything else, I will usually charge a day rate. Otherwise, for a, say, morning session that's done by 12 or an afternoon session that only starts at 1, I will charge a half day rate. Generally work on either day or half day. So as you can see in the balance sheet, go back to here, we're falling pretty far flat of the amount we need to get. Basically, we're a quarter of minimum wage. So that's when we can start playing with a few of the figures. Now I've found personally that £140 is probably where you want to be as a experienced and skilled outdoor provider who's done a number, because you've probably put in a number of hours. If you have a forest school leader qualification, that's almost 2 years of hard work in there. If you've got experience as a primary school teacher, if you've attended multiple CPDs, you are worth more. You are a skilled professional. So your pay should reflect that amount. See, at a day rate of £140, we start entering a better bracket. So you can see net annual profit £10,000. Now, of course, we can drop the expenses. We can say, okay, we've already got the van paid off. Let's go back over here. If we drop the vehicle off, go, yep, it's all paid for, or I'm just using the family car, then if I'm just going to use and reuse as much equipment as I can, and only spend $300 a year on it, and you know what, I don't really need that membership, and you know what, cheap little clothing will do for me. See, we can drop those overheads, but they are always going to be there. See, we dropped our expenses a bit, and then we're in a better place with profit. So net annual profit is about 10,000. So as you can see, there is a real danger of getting eaten alive by overheads, and it's something that's worth keeping an eye on. Putting things into a spreadsheet, going, okay, where are my expenses? It may come to a point where you go, okay, this isn't working. I need to cut one of these costs, and I need to change the way I run the sessions. I need to increase my prices or cut my costs. Those are the two levers you have most of the time. Increase price, reduce, unless you want to go the third way, which is increase the number of sessions, but that way leads to burnout really quickly. So there you go, that's how you can have a play around with that. I also have, as a fourth sheet, a quick and easy session rate calculator. This is just for someone who goes, okay, I've got so and so going, hey, can you run this session? It'll be for this many people over the course of the day. How much are you going to charge? And we can quickly and easily put together a quote for them. So first of all, you're going to set your own day rate in there. So for me, a half day rate would be £70. So if I was running a half day session on my own with no leader, and so with no assistant, okay, site hire at, let's call it £30. Consumables, so that's anything, so in this case we'll be providing hot chocolate biscuits and firewood, so about £10 is pretty good for that. And then I know, because of my overheads, there are certain overheads I need to cut, so I'm just going to put in a nominal amount, and your per session amount is the one you can find on the expenses sheet here. So you can, okay, non-variable overheads, £11.59 per session. So you can just drop that straight in there and go, okay, £12 per session for overheads. You know what? Actually, for this session to work, I'm going to need to buy 4 more secateurs, so we'll call it around £30. And you know what? How far is it going to be away? Yeah, because you can set this to your own amount. How far are you willing to travel, and how much do you want to be paid to travel further? So if I was traveling to the other side of Leicester and it's going to be 40 odd miles. I go, okay, miles over T. There we go. So that would add an extra £1 to the cost. I might just leave that off entirely, but if I'm, say, traveling to the other end of the country, it starts adding up a bit more. And then this gives us a session quote of £150 for half a day, £30 site hire, £10 worth of consumables, and £30 to cover our costs, along with a £10 fuel budget. So this is how I usually cost out a session. It takes me 2 minutes. Once I've got this all dialed in according to my specific circumstances, just add it in wherever and make your own choices on your own rates and what you're charging for assistant, what your site hire is, adapt it all to you. So there you have it. That is how I look at overheads, expenses and income, and set my own session rates, and how I price a session if I'm going to go deliver somewhere. I hope that has been helpful. My challenge to you is to go away and download the spreadsheet. So I've got a link in the description to where you can get that from our website. As I said, totally free to download. Just download it, have a play with it, adapt it. So once you have a look at the formulas, whatever, it's pretty simple to work out, and you can add in your own lines, add in your own expenses, change what you need to change, make it your own, and hopefully you can then use it as a tool to make decisions. If you're offered this opportunity and this opportunity, you can't decide between the two. Excel doesn't lie. Plug the numbers in, work it out, and ask your heart which way you want to go as well, and make a decision, and hopefully it will serve you well. So this has been quite a long video, so if you're stuck along to this far, hope it hasn't been too rambling, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. If you have any questions or queries, or would like any follow-up videos discussing any aspects of, say, how I budget for these annual expenses that don't occur on a monthly basis, just let me know. I'm here to help. And if you'd like to get in touch with me directly, the email address is info@brackenoutdoors.com. Thank you so very much. I'll see you in the next video.